Bob Costas is with us. And Bob, of course, then it's Lou Gehrig far and away, and there's really no discussion. Then is Jimmy Double X Fox. Those guys are gone now. We're doing 1969 up, and the heavy hitters are here. I thought this was a difficult list, but it was a lot of fun to put the big boys head to head.
Yeah, this is by far, BK, the most frustrating list. And we've got 10 categories. Starting pitchers and relief pitchers makes it 10, but no DH. If there was a DH category, you could spill a lot of the guys who will show up on our first base list or who just missed. You could spill them into DH. We don't have that option. So let me start here to show you how frustrating it was with the guys who are regretful omissions. Steve Garvey is a regretful omission. A very significant player in his era. Some of the standards were different. He was supposed to drive in runs. He showed up every day, played in more than 1,000 consecutive games, had big postseason moments, doesn't get the credit he deserves. Keith Hernandez was to first base what Brooks Robinson and Ozzie Smith were to third base and shortstop. He's the greatest fielding first baseman of all time. He's not on this list. Fred Mcgriff, again, gets the short end of the stick, just like in the Hall of Fame. Wish I could have put him on. Freddie Freeman, maybe not enough volume to this point. Lance Berkman didn't play much of his career at first base, some of it. And then when you take guys like McCovey, Killebrew, and Allen, McCovey did have his greatest season in '69, but to me, too much of the greatness of Willie McCovey precedes the divisional era. Harmon Killebrew hit more home runs than anyone in the 1960s, but again, not as much after the divisional era starts. Same thing for Dick Allen. And we talked about Don Mattingly before. There was a time when you would say that he was the greatest player in baseball. Not enough volume to make the Hall of Fame and barely missing this list, but I don't feel good about it. This list, you could go 20 deep and justify all of it.
And you just did, actually, Bob. That does not absolve you. You still did not have those guys in the top 10. But all right, go through your top 10 now, Bob. Do it.
Okay. Albert Pujols, 1. Frank Thomas, 2. Miguel Cabrera, 3. Jim Thome, 4. Eddie Murray, big-time RBI man, well-respected by everybody in his era. Willie Stargill, not just the career numbers, but had the big '79 World Series. Mark McGwire, it's difficult to ignore the numbers, even though we know that for a good period of time, they were steroid-enhanced. Joey Votto, an on-base machine. You can make an argument against him. Todd Helton, you can diminish it however you want because of the Coors Field factor, but the numbers, you look at that 2000 season, hard to ignore, and Jeff Bagwell is in the Hall of Fame.
Bob, you know I love you, right? And I respect you as a broadcaster, as a person.
Yes.
My list is so much better than yours, it's not even funny, Bob. I'm just going to let you know that right now. Here's my list. Because you're making the excuses, well, this guy would do this, I would do that. I had no problem getting Willie McCovey in there. I had Willie McCovey up there. He was peaking 69 to 71, the best hitter in baseball, or at least the National League. Carl Yastrzemski was over there in the American League at the time. So I've got Pujols number 1, McCovey number 2, and McCovey and Stargill and Cabrera very, very close. Miguel Cabrera could make a move on him. Dick Allen, I could have had Dick Allen second looking back on it, but you're right. You do have to then, go back and use the guy's whole career, which I do. If I'm going to use a guy's peak, 69 to 71, I'm going to use his whole career. I think it's only fair. Jeff Bagwell, great player, number 5. He gets dinged a little bit, PED suspicion, but he's there at number 5. Frank Thomas, obviously an all-time great hitter. Jim Thome, our colleague, obviously also an all-time great hitter. And then I veer a little bit. I go for, and I keep throwing this out there, like in the real world, who do you want out at first base? And Keith Hernandez did not hit at the level of these other guys, 1 through 8. But his fielding was the best in the history of baseball. He commanded a game. He was a winner. I would ride with Keith Hernandez at number 9. And then Fred Mcgriff is vastly underrated. I found room for Mcgriff. I look at him, runs created, when you look at it for a 15-year period, Mcgriff deserves to be there. And I'll throw it again at you, Bob. My guy's a winner. Fred Mcgriff in the postseason was a monster. He got after it every series. He led the Braves to the first, Atlanta World Series championship. It was Mcgriff who did that. So, it's very difficult. There's guys who just fell off. Look, you had Joey Votto and I didn't. That breaks my heart. But I just can't do it. So I found room for Mcgriff and Keith Hernandez there at the end. Go ahead, Bob. I'll let you speak.
Well, I'm glad that Keith Hernandez gets a nod. He won a batting title. He shared an MVP award. He got 2 huge hits off tough left-handed pitchers in the 7th game of World Series in '82 for the Cardinals, in '86 for the Mets. Keith Hernandez is a significant player who deserves more Hall of Fame consideration. The same thing, as I said before, is true of Steve Garvey. So all your reasons make sense to me, and I hope that all of my reasons make sense to you. to you.
No, but
not so much.
Not exactly. I like what you're thinking, though. I know you're thinking through it. I think Freddie Freeman is making a case and could be knocking on the door in the top 10. And Steve Garvey, you're right, you talk about historically significant. He was a huge star and was also a winner in the playoffs. He had a great postseason record. Dick Allen, if you're going to remember, 1972 was his best year, his MVP year with the White Sox.
Yeah.
So I would use Dick Allen. By the way, from 64 to 74, Dick Allen's OPS plus was 165. That's higher than McCovey. That's higher than Miggy Cabrera over his best 10, 11 years. Dick Allen was a better hitter than Miguel Cabrera. How about that?
I think there was a stretch of time where he was second in OPS among active players only to Hank Aaron. I think he was second only to Hank Aaron in a significant stretch of years. I don't know if it was 64 to 74, but something comparable to that. But again, you and I looked at this slightly differently. Maybe I was making it easier on myself. If too much of the guy's career predated the divisional era, then I was able to break ties in my own mind that way.
Yeah, I didn't. It does give you an appreciation for players like Willie Stargill. I mean, Stargill gets back up. He's in my top 5. He made the top 10 for my all-century team. And Jim Thome, Frank Thomas. Now, these guys were, mostly hitters. These guys weren't great fielders. But we're talking OPS plus for a dozen years, 161, 154. It's absurdly high. And I wondered what to do with Bagwell. Bagwell also ran the bases and fielded. So he's one of those players, too, that, fielding at first base, and look, you mentioned Don Mattingly, it makes a difference. Like, you can put a big guy there, but when you have a guy who can field, it kind of changes your whole defense there in your infield.
Well, let me say something else about Keith Hernandez, pardon me, to make up for his omission on my list next time I cross paths with him. He wasn't just great at digging out errant throws in the dirt or making diving plays that make highlight reels. He changed the way the Cardinals played defense. He became their cutoff man rather than Tommy Herr because his arm was so strong. And you try to bunt against the Mets or the Cardinals, he'd come in so close from first base, and being a left-handed thrower, he took away that side of the field because he'd get the force at second base. Keith Hernandez was a dynamic player. And don't you wish, BK, that we had a DH list? Hernandez would then be on the first base list. Thome and maybe some others would go to the DH list, and we wouldn't be having this argument.
I don't know, but I like having the argument. I don't want to make things easier for you. I want you to have to make apologies as you go into every list. You're right. Hernandez threw guys out, not at first, but at second, third, and home. And teams would call off a bunt. Saw it with my own eyes. You couldn't even bunt up the third baseline if Hernandez was there. A game-changing player. And again, it's at least we're discussing him now, and I hope he gets more Hall of Fame attention.